What's up, everybody? Okay, so Tiff and I just got through recording our trauma-informed church training. We don't know exactly what the title is going to be yet. I've given it like 3 different titles today as we've gone through it. Anyway, it'll be available for download on our website here pretty soon, and there's going to be a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1 is more psychoeducational about trauma, and part 2 will be really more practical, and the goal is to really help churches to create safe church policies, flowcharts, an understanding of trauma, and gain self-awareness, like for church leaders to gain self-awareness within themselves as they're doing this process. And so I'm super excited, tired. That was 2 hours of recording. But okay, so we just wanted to just capture our thoughts here in a follow-up episode. Yeah, so you guys will kind of know about this training and why it's important. Yeah, jump in.
Yeah. So, personally going through this, it's, it always brings up that sense of, am I going to ruffle feathers? Am I going to say, because we don't want to do that, really. I take that back. We do want to ruffle feathers, right? We want to get people thinking. We want to just get some assessing going, right? And so, but you're also we're aware of our words, and we want to make sure we're saying things that are true, right? And that we can back up. And so making some of these bold statements of leaders, pastors, you're not responsible for this, that's empowering, right? Of saying, you don't have to be a trauma therapist for the people in my congregation, right? Even as I'm talking about that, I'm like, it's freeing by saying, I don't have to do it all. As a therapist, I know where I don't go. That is so empowering for me because I can do what I need to do with the skills I have, and that there's freedom in that. And our goal ultimately
to recognize when something's outside of the scope is very freeing.
Yeah. And our goal in even presenting this information from a spiritual perspective is we want you guys, all of us, to work through the yuck in our life. That's sanctification. Because when you go through hard times, when you go through traumas, right, it brings us a strength. There's a strength that comes through trauma. That's not to say that God purposely gives us things to make us strong, right? But we're told we're going to have things. And we need to address the hurt. Yet it brings us, our desire is that we become more of who God created us to be. And that starts with autonomy. It starts with recognizing the hurt that we've experienced, the hurt that we've caused. We're walking through that fire. We're being refined. We're being sanctified. And many times we get in the way. Life gets in the way of someone's pursuit in their relationship with God, right? And it's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like what's coming up for me as you're saying that, I think about that verse that I think is used as toxic positivity sometimes of like, well, God works all things together for the good of those who are called according to his purpose. So, be thankful for the hard, you know what I mean? I think the promise there is beautiful, but not to diminish like the hurt, and not to diminish like that wasn't like God is not happy that you have gone through that. Like that wasn't his original plan for you, that would happen. And to be able to know that as I do the work to untangle all the hurt around that and all the defenses that I built around that, like there is freedom. Like, and that's what we see as trauma therapists. Like there is like walking with people through the process. Oftentimes they do get more insight as if they're believers into like God's heart around the issue, God's heart around maybe the beliefs that have kind of like taken root because of the hurt. Sometimes even like, I know what's come up for people sometimes in EMDR therapy is like they see God. They might see Jesus like there in a new way that they didn't even realize before, that connects them with him. They see his heart on the issue. There's very deep healing that I think happens like in the therapy space with that. But that promise, I think, happens as we kind of go through the hard stuff of the pain of it, the grief of it, and then looking at the defenses that we're building up for ourselves around it, and then deciding to step and take those down. And all of those are really good things that build emotional resilience and security in us, that come from having gone through hard things, and having seen some stuff. So I think that there is some blessing that can come, but I want to be very careful not to be so quick to just like try to pull people out of like their hurting place, with that verse, even though I, as a therapist, know there's hope. I know that. So anyway, I think we both feel really like empowered and kind of energized just after doing this training. But I think it's going to be super important for church leaders to watch this and to begin to recognize their own. And this, we started out with that with an exercise, and a big theme in the training is like learn how to recognize your own triggers, as they're coming up for you. Learn to recognize your own stuff. Like understand that every person is bringing their own story, which is full of hurt and full of different things, into the space, and to be able to honor that stuff in each other, I think, is a huge theme of what we were talking about today.
Yeah, I just want to tag that onto what you were saying of, verses that get taken out of context sometimes, that, consider it your joy when you face trials of many kind. That's not saying in a moment of being abused, are you supposed to be feeling joyful? And everyone will say, well, of course not. But it gets portrayed in a way of stuff like that. Comments like are a way of spiritually bypassing the issue. We call that spiritual bypass, which we didn't talk too much in the presentation. But it's anytime we use spiritual language, jargon to get around emotions and feelings and truth, really. And to get to that verse is still true, but it's not. We need to know our role. My role is not to tell you who experienced a traumatic incident that you should be feeling joy right now instead of depression, right? When we work through and get the healing, God brings us to a place of healing, and from there is the building of character. But that's through God and the Holy Spirit, and we need to allow that to happen and not be afraid if someone's pace of healing isn't quick enough for us. If they're not moving through their depression quick enough, if they're not being less anxious enough, So, and it's, that's, we've all done it.
And that's our own stuff coming up. It's our own discomfort, right? Like it doesn't have anything to do with the person. It's my own tolerance for my own discomfort in the situation. So I'm putting I'm trying to push somebody else through their healing process because it makes me uncomfortable. And that I need to work through that. That's my own stuff to work through.
That's right. And a good practice, if you want to learn how to sit in uncomfortable spaces, go to a grief support group if they'll let you. Go sit in an AA meeting, right? Go listen and be quiet and listen, right? Because if when you, I went to one AA meeting one time, a lot of people there, you see everybody in that room, all men and women, ages, people that are in business suits, people that are in bathing suits, right? And very quickly, you'll start having reactions to what you're seeing and hearing. And you'll notice if it brings it, whatever, it's going to bring stuff up. Go sit in a grief group, listen to stories of people who have lost someone without having something to say other than just being there with them. That will build your tolerance. I mean, as therapists, that's what we do. We sit with people with their stories, some horrible, right? And it is so hard because we want to rush in and, we want to go in and solve it. We want to take away their pain. Yet sitting and listening and just be still. Like that verse, be still and know that I am God. How uncomfortable is it for a leader, for a pastor, to be still and not have the perfect sermon, not have the perfect thing to say? How uncomfortable it is for a congregant to say, I desire to people please and do all the things and serve in all the areas. I'm not going to do it. And I'm just going to be still. I'm going to take care of my family and, I'm going to do this. So it's slowing it down. And it's powerful for us after going through
very powerful.
What we did today, for you and me to just put thought and education into concise slides is really hard. And yet I benefit from this. It gives me perspective. It gives me autonomy. It gives me, all right, I need to be doing this myself. Like if I'm going to say these things, then I have to be willing to speak up. I have to be willing to hold on to my own autonomy and accept responsibility for how I've contributed to some of this culture that hasn't been great.
Yeah. So good.
So yeah.
So good. There's a lot. I know we'll be kind of, working through our own stuff. And just like we said at the beginning of the training, like, we're bringing our own stuff to the table. We were vulnerable today. And, we don't have all the answers. We're learning and growing as well. I know that we're going to be working through our own stuff after kind of going through this training with people today. And I just want to say that both of us definitely feel like this is an important part of the work God's called us to.